Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1387A, and today's date is September 26, 2017, and the title of the episode is The Economy is Unwinding, Not the Fed Balance Sheet. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we've been talking about how the central banks, governments, they've been trying to control the crypto market. This is their end game, to control everything about it. And out in Sweden, what we see is that the Swedish government, they are now testing cryptocurrencies. Now, the government bankers across the world believe that this has the potential to replace cash and make other payment systems more efficient. So Sweden's central bank is taking a serious look at Bitcoin. Now, cash use in Sweden is plummeting right now. And the amount of currency that is in circulation is dwindling. And they're looking to experiment with cryptocurrency. Now, again, they're going to want to control it. They're not going to want this to be an open, decentralized system. They want to make sure that they can control everything about it. And this is why we have a lot of different banks, the UBS and many others, and the central banks that are trying to create their own type of coin, which they would control and say, listen, we've stabilized it. We've made it so it doesn't fluctuate. You can get out of Bitcoin. You can get out of the other cryptocurrencies and move into ours. And it looks like this is what they're trying to do. Now, out in Sweden, the Riksbank, they estimate that the cash transactions made up only of around 15% of all retail transactions last year. The number is down from 40% in 2010, thanks in large part to the massively popular mobile payment type of system. And they're looking at this saying, maybe we should move into maybe Bitcoin or something else and implement it in Sweden and completely move everything in that direction. Because eventually what's going to happen, they want everything to go electronic. Here in the United States, we see the economy is still falling apart. Consumer confidence, well, that has dropped. It looks like the American public is losing faith in the stock market. They don't believe the stock market anymore, even though it's continually bobbing up and down right now, where it's also hitting all-time new highs. They're looking at it and saying, well, wait a minute. The corporate earnings, those are manipulated. The corporations are buying back their stocks. Their actual sales revenue coming in does not exist. The valuation of all these companies, well, some of them are a little odd, and it looks like we've seen this back in the dot-com bubble in 2008. And people are looking at it right now saying, I really don't believe this anymore. Now, if we look at the S&P 500, it has closed at a new record high 37 times so far this year. Now, this is the most in the first quarter to third quarter period since 1997, when the S&P closed at a new record 40 times before the start of the fourth quarter. And when you look at this, you say, this is kind of odd. Is this really something that can happen? We've seen it happen many times before, but every time it has happened, guess what occurred? A recession. And it looks like we're heading in that direction. We see Case-Shiller, well, they're out with their new home prices, saying that they are growing at the fastest pace in 3 years. They hit an all-time new record high. And what's very interesting about this is now we are above the point of the housing bubble back in 2008. We are now above that point. And if you really look at the Case-Shiller 20 City Index year on year, well, it really hasn't gone anywhere. It's pretty much flatline. Now, let's take what Case-Shiller just told us, that housing prices are moving up. They're growing at a very fast pace. But when we look at what is really happening in home sales, it just doesn't make sense once again. Pending home sales, new home sales, existing home sales, they are all down. Now, we saw this in July. We saw it in August. Here we are in September. And August, well, it's coming in that, yes, sales are down once again. And this does not look good. Now, they thought there was going to be a 2.5% gain, but they're down 3.4%. This is huge. So what is happening here is that the housing market is completely falling apart. Now, what's very interesting is that we know that we had a hurricane in Texas. We had one in Florida. We know that Puerto Rico, the people are really suffering down there. There's no water, electric. It is a complete disaster. And what the Census Bureau does is if the agencies don't report in, they don't have any sales information, they just say, okay, everything is unchanged. We'll just leave everything the way it is. Now, we know because of what has happened in Texas and Florida, people didn't go out and they didn't purchase any new homes. So we know that sales are much, much lower than what they're reporting. But since no sales have been reported, they just say things are unchanged. Now, let's take this one step further. Kay Schiller in the 20 cities is telling us how great everything is and prices are increasing. We see new homes, pending homes, existing homes completely imploding on themselves. And then we see the demand is down for all three types of mortgages. Mortgages eligible for guarantees by the government-sponsored enterprises such as Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Well, we know these are funded by the taxpayers. Well, these are down. And when we look at this, we can see that why are these down? Because the everyday American person is not going out and they're not purchasing these homes. Now, there was a survey that was conducted, and it's conducted quarterly. It tallied responses from the senior executives at 190 mortgage lenders, from the largest banks to the smaller specialty lenders, to assess their views and outlook across a varied dimensions of the mortgage market. These executives reported that demand over the past 3 months has dropped to a year-over-year for purchase mortgages, reaching the lowest third quarter reading in the past 2 years. Lenders also reported that they're refinancing those mortgages. They are also down. So when Kay Schiller comes out and tells us how great everything is and prices are rising, why are all these sales down? Why are the lenders saying that people are not going out and, buying the houses through mortgages? And why now, since there's a lack of demand at these lenders, why are they loosening their lending standards to bring more people in? This is what we see when the banks want to push out more debt. We saw it in the automobile industry. When they finished with all those individuals that had, good or medium credit, they went down to the poor credit, down to the subprime, then down to the subprime. Because what happens is they can't bring people in to push the debt out, so they have to go down to the next level. And this ends up to be a problem, as we saw back in 2008. So the housing market right now is not going as well as the corporate media is reporting, or the Fed is reporting, or the government is reporting. Yes, you're going to have still some hot areas, but the rest of the country, they're feeling the pain. Now, the Fed cash carry, he's out there, and this is the Minneapolis Fed president, Neil Kashkari. He's saying that there is no evidence that there's a problem with inflation. He said, when I look at the economy, I don't see any signs that the economy is close to overheating. Now, we know that Yellen came out and told us that we're not going to see any type of economic crisis in our lifetime. We have Kashkari out there telling us that he doesn't see a problem with inflation. He doesn't see the economy overheating. And we heard this before, back in 2008, before the recession, where they weren't forecasting any type of recession. The real estate market is contained, the subprime securities contained, and AIG will only need one bailout. Well, coming out of the Fed documentation, it looks like the Fed chair, Janet Yellen, openly admitted that the Fed does not fully understand inflation. And then just this morning, Yellen stated that the Fed was wrong with employment and inflation. Now, remember, this is the Fed we're talking about, the group of individuals that are supposed to be running the country financially. And they're telling us they don't understand employment. They don't understand inflation. The question is, why don't they understand this? Well, they do understand it. They understand they're manipulating all the numbers. They understand that the government is manipulating all the numbers. They realize that all this manipulation has thrown everything off. I mean, they knew there was a recession coming in 2008. They knew they were going to pull the plug. They knew exactly what was happening. Just because they're not telling you doesn't mean they don't know. The same thing's happening right now. They understand that inflation, well, the whole thing's starting to heat up. This is why they're putting out the message that everything is fine. They always do this before everything starts to fall apart. And that's what we're seeing right now. Now, there was a new study that backs up a theory that many Americans have long suspected. The U.S. is no longer the land of opportunity, despite what the national statistics would have us believe, and the corporate media out there telling us that, yes, this is true. Now, this research comes from the Economic Innovation Group, the EIG, and this is a bipartisan public policy organization funded by successful tech entrepreneurs. The study provides detailed data on the economically distressed communities that have fundamentally changed the economic landscape of America. Now, some of the key findings from the groundbreaking study are the following. 53 million individuals, 1 in 6 Americans, live in an economically distressed zip code. Prosperous zip codes are home to 84.8 million people, more than any other of the 5 tiers of communities. More than half of the country's population living in distressed zip codes resides in the South. A quarter of the distressed population is under 18 years of age, meaning roughly 13 million American children are growing up in communities which likely have a deeply negative neighborhood effect. In the average distressed zip codes, more than a quarter of the population lives in poverty, and over 40% of prime-age adults are missing from the workforce. And 58% of adults in distressed zip codes have no education beyond high school. And one of the most disturbing findings is that the so-called economic recovery has been a cruel illusion to a large swath of the U.S. And they're saying that the United States is no longer the land of opportunity. Only certain areas, only certain individuals have this opportunity. And we can see that the landscape of the United States has changed completely over the years, where a lot of the wealth has been siphoned up to the 1%. And the rest of the country is working 1, 2, 3 part-time jobs, trying to make ends meet, lost their high-paying job, either got laid off or fired, never could find another job that they had. And we can see this has been going on for a very long time. I just saw the other day this 30-year-old man. He says he works 2 part-time jobs. He just went to another interview, and he's trying to get a full-time job. And again, he was rejected, and he's still trying to make ends meet with these 2 part-time jobs, still trying to get a full-time job. And this is happening to many individuals across the country. And I could see why the people are sitting here scratching their heads saying, what is going on? Because everyone right now is suffering. Everyone is trying to get by. Everyone's trying to make ends meet. And a lot of people, and we can see from all the information that we've been receiving, is that they've been running up their credit cards just to try to make ends meet. This is the last stage of an economy where the people of the economy, well, they suffer for it. And this is how the central banking system is developed, because they siphon away all the wealth at the very end. And this is exactly what we're seeing right now. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.